Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Yesterday, a little small film called Spider-Man No Way Home came out. I don't know if you heard of it or not, but it was awesome. So this is my spoiler-free review of Spider-Man No Way Home. And yes, it is spoiler-free, so if you haven't seen the movie, don't worry about any spoilers. I'm not going to be talking about any of the spoilers in the film, but I will be talking about stuff from the trailers because that's in the trailers and that's not spoilers. With that said, let me know down in the comments if you have seen Spider-Man No Way Home. What did you think of the movie? And if you have not seen it yet, how excited are you to see it? And I hope nothing gets spoiled for you because there's a lot of spoilers online for this movie already. But of course, I'm not going to spoil anything because this is a spoiler-free review. With that said, let's get started with what I thought of the movie. And who am I kidding? This movie is a great crowd pleaser. This movie reminded me of why I love watching movies as much as I do, because the theater experience for this film might be the best theater experience I've ever had in my entire life. Yes, even better than Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, because I just had a phenomenal experience watching this movie. Sitting there with a crowd of people that enjoy the same things that I do, or looking forward to the same things that I do, and are just huge fans, just made me feel something. It was something special, and I had a great time watching this film. And the movie itself was also amazing. Like, the entire time I was watching this film, I just had a big smile on my face because of how good the experience was, how good the movie was. And I just loved it. A huge reason why it is as good as it is because of nostalgia. Obviously, as we see in the trailers, the villains from previous Spider-Man movies are returning. Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Electro, Sandman, and Lizard, and seeing all of those was just great. The first Spider-Man movie I ever saw in a theater was The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I saw it as a kid. Back then, I loved it. Now, I don't think it's as great as it was for me because back then I just loved any comic book movie. Now, I don't think it's as good as I thought it was back then, but it's still an enjoyable film for me. And I rewatched all the Spider-Man movies before watching Spider-Man No Way Home. So this movie experience kind of was even better because I saw all of those a few days before watching this one. Yeah, like I said, the villains return and they're fantastic. I loved seeing all these villains return and their banter and seeing them interact was just great. Seeing Doc Ock, Green Goblin interact, because both of them are great scientists and stuff, and when they both are talking, because they're from the same universe and they kind of know each other, but to Doc Ock, as we see in the Spider-Man movies, to Doc Ock, Green Goblin is dead. But he's not because they came from another universe, and that's just really cool. I like the way they executed that. And when we see villains talk to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, that was just a ton of fun. And seeing them interact was just something special because I never thought something like that would ever happen. And when we saw the trailers for this movie and these villains were returning, it was just really cool. And seeing that in the movie was even better. For Dr. Octopus, of course, his arc from the Spider-Man 2 movie continues here. At the end of that movie, he becomes kind of redeemed. And seeing him here, I think the way they continued his storyline, the way John Watts respected that movie and took his story from there, I thought was really cool, and the way it was executed too was fantastic. And oh my god, Willem Dafoe is amazing as Green Goblin. Before, I would say Doc Ock might be my favorite Spider-Man villain, or maybe Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming, but after watching this movie, I think Willem Dafoe playing Green Goblin might be my favorite Spider-Man villain because, oh my god, he is so good. I think his performance in this movie is even better than his performance in the original Spider-Man, and he is fantastic in the original Spider-Man. So seeing him here just added on top of how much I already loved him as the villain. And yeah, like I said, now I think he might be my favorite Spider-Man villain. He's menacing, but he's also kind of relatable when we see him as just Norman Osborn, and he changes both of those characters really well, and he just plays both of them fantastically without, like, it's flawless. His performance in this movie is flawless, and I loved seeing him again. Now, Electro, I still like Electro in this movie. I don't love him. In Amazing Spider-Man 2, he was a pretty weak villain. He started off with kind of an interesting motivation, but as he went on and became a villain, it just didn't work for me. I think he's better in this one. He feels a little different because in that one, he's more awkward and weird, but here he's more fun and quirky. I don't know why he changed so much in the span of both of these movies, because technically he's being pulled out from the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2, so he should be the same character, but I was okay with that because I did prefer this version of Electro over the one in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. As far as Lizard and Sandman go, they're in the movie. I thought they were fine. I don't think they're nearly as good as Electro, Doc Ock, or Green Goblin. They're in the movie. I thought they were fun enough, and I did enjoy seeing them in the action sequences and stuff, but that's pretty much all they were there for. This movie also has fantastic fan service. Now, some of it was predictable, some of it wasn't, but as a whole, when the fan service was happening, it was great. And the movie just doesn't use fan service cheaply. The fan service adds to the story. It makes the story better. It makes the movie better. And it was something special. To me, fan service works when the story is good and it makes the story better. And that's what this movie did. Fan service could be anything. You could just add it over a bad movie and those scenes would be fun with the fan service. But it doesn't make the movie any better. But here, I think the fan service actually adds to how good the movie is. So I loved that. I think Tom Holland as Peter Parker in here was fantastic. I think this is easily his best performance as Spider-Man in any of the Spider-Man movies and in any of the MCU movies that he showed up in, like Infinity War, Endgame, and Civil War. Before, if you asked me who my favorite Peter Parker / Spider-Man was, honestly, I wouldn't be sure. I love all three of the Spider-Man a lot, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland. But now, if you ask me after watching this movie, I think I'm going to say Tom Holland because I just loved what they did with this character. And this is where he actually becomes Spider-Man. And you're not going to know what I mean until you watch the movie. But I think this is where I felt Peter Parker and Tom Holland actually becoming and turning into the character of Spider-Man and who he is meant to be in the comics and stuff. So I thought they just did a great job. And now that I think about it, like Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home, this trilogy is pretty much Peter Parker's origin story, and I loved the way that he became Spider-Man in this movie. I thought that MJ in this movie was great. In the previous movies, I thought she was okay. She wasn't in Homecoming a lot, and when she was in Far From Home, I didn't really love her character. But here, I think she's really good, and I really bought into the relationship between her and Peter, so I really like that, and I think Zendaya was also really good in the film. And of course, Ned. Ned is just a blast to watch. He's really funny. He's entertaining. And they do some stuff with him in the movie that I thought was really funny. And there's some really cool stuff that they do as well. And I'm interested to see what Ned has to do in the future of the MCU, just because of seeing some of the stuff that he did in this movie. I thought Marissa Tomei as Aunt May was amazing. And I think she might be my favorite Aunt May after this movie. I'm not going to go too deep into why, because I'm going to get into spoilers. But I don't want to get into spoilers because this is a spoiler-free review. But what they did with her character was just fantastic. And like I said, she might be my favorite Aunt May. Doctor Strange was a great addition. He's not like a side character. He doesn't show up like all throughout the film. But when he's in it, I think he was great. He was fun. And of course, as you see in the trailers, he also kind of helps Peter. But he also has some conflict with Peter. And I think both the sides of his character was great. And seeing him was just fun because I really enjoy seeing Doctor Strange in more of a bigger setting, and that's kind of what this movie is, like Avengers Infinity War, Endgame, in this movie. And I think like seeing him in these movies make me like Doctor Strange even more, because the movie itself, when you first watch it, you don't like it that much, but every time I see Doctor Strange in another movie, I start to like his character more. So when I go back and watch the first Doctor Strange, I like that movie even more. To me, this movie was surprisingly very brutal and emotional as well. A lot of people said that in their reviews, and I didn't completely understand what they meant until I saw the movie for myself. And yeah, this movie is really brutal, really emotional, and there was even one scene where I really started to tear up because I loved what they did. It was emotional, it was fun, but it was really the brutal and sad moments that made this movie as good as it is for me, and I just loved it. The ending of this movie is also not a completely happy ending. It doesn't end with a bow wrapped around it. It's not a perfect ending. It doesn't end at a place where you're just having smiles everywhere. It's actually emotional. It's actually sad. And I'm interested to see where it goes, because they end at a point where I'm just like, I don't see where this story could go. There's a bunch of possibilities, and I want to explore them all. So I really loved what they did with the ending of this movie as well. Yes, this movie is grand scale. There's villains coming from all the different multiverses that we've explored in the Spider-Man universe, but it's still a very personal and emotional story about Peter's character, and I think that is really what made this movie so good. It is grand scale. There's a lot of stuff going on, but at its core, it's a story about Peter Parker and how he actually becomes Spider-Man, and I think that they they just did a great job. And this movie made me like Homecoming and Far From Home more than I already did. The journey of getting to this movie was just awesome as well. There's of course a lot of fan theories and speculation. Some of them were true, some of them were not. I'm not going to talk about that right now because those would be spoilers. But yeah, I just loved the experience of getting to this movie and getting to see it, because once I saw it, I just had a blast and the biggest smile on my face. So it was really, really good. There's also 2 post-credit scenes in the movie, and I don't really want to review the post-credit scenes. I'm going to talk about them more in a separate video probably. But yeah, I did really enjoy the post-credit scenes as well. Now, as much as I love this movie, and I know a lot of people don't really have any flaws with it, I do have a few issues. They're not like huge issues that bring the whole movie down, but I do have some problems with the movie, so I'm going to go into those right now. I think the first half is a little clunky. I can't say too much because I'd probably be spoiling some stuff, but I did think that they could have set up the story a little bit better. I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that we saw in the trailers. So the main setup for the movie is that Peter goes to Doctor Strange to kind of remove everyone's memory that Peter is Spider-Man because he's having a tough time living his life. And okay, that's all fine. But the way it's executed, the reason all the villains show up is because Doctor Strange messes up his spell because Peter was talking too much. And the way it was done in the movie, I thought was even worse than I predicted it to be. In the trailer itself, it was a little clunky. And when I saw it in the movie, I think it was even worse just because of the way it played out and the context of everything. So I do wish that they were able to do something different to start off all the villains showing up in Tom Holland's universe. But I do think that felt quite clunky to start off the main plot of the film. I think the best way to say it is that they knew how to conclude the movie and how the journey was going to be, but they didn't know how to start off the journey, which is why it felt that way. I can't go too deep into it because then that would be spoilers, but I will say that I wish they did something better to start off the event of what happened in the movie than, Peter talking too much, so Doctor Strange messing up his spell. But other than that, this movie, I will say, was amazing. As far as my final thoughts go, this isn't the best movie of the year. It's not my favorite movie of the year as of right now, but I will say this. It's probably the most entertaining and the most fun time I've had watching a movie all year, and maybe since Avengers Endgame. Not the best movie since Avengers Endgame, but probably the most fun I've had watching one because it was just great to watch. The fan service, the story, the emotion. Like I said, it was much more emotional and brutal than I was expecting. And I loved every second of watching this movie in a theater setting because, like I said, it's probably my favorite movie experience I've ever had in my entire 14-year-old lifetime. The first thing I thought to myself after walking out of this movie was I need to see this again as soon as possible, and I want to show it to other people as well. So I really love that feeling, and this movie just reminded me of how much I love movies and why I love movies as much as I do because of the community experience in a movie theater. So I just loved seeing this movie, and I hope we get to see something like this again, probably like in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness or something, because this experience was just fantastic. Time for my final score, and I'm going to give Spider-Man No Way Home on a quality level an A-. On an entertainment scale, I'm going to go a 9.5 out of 10. And yeah, I really love this movie. And I hope that we get to see some sort of continuation of it. And it's actually just as good as this movie. Because I absolutely loved it. And I just had a fantastic time watching it. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Let me know down in the comments, what did you think of Spider-Man No Way Home? If you enjoyed my review, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I will be doing more Spider-Man stuff, so watch out for those. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.